We're joined by the captain, Andrew Agozzino. Let's just start with that game. I mean, with teddy bear toss games, I'm sure there's this internal thought where let's get one out of the way so we can just be done with this. And you waited all the way till the late stages of the second period. But to see that puck go in, that had to be a relief. And just walk us through the game as a whole and just that moment when you guys tied the game and started to kind of get some momentum going.
Yeah, teddy bear toss is always an exciting night. Everyone kind of secretly hopes they are the one to score the goal and get the teddy bears flying. But it took a little while longer than we had hoped. But I thought we were playing really well up until that point regardless. And that was obviously a big goal for us at the end of the second period.
It did seem like it was only a matter of time before you got that goal. You guys started to get the offensive mojo going in that second period. Kind of a slow start, the first. Both teams feeling each other out. You've played each other a lot as of late. But what happened once you got that first goal? Because all of a sudden you just explode. You guys, the power play, 3 power play goals, and you end up winning 4-2.
Yeah, I think we knew once we would get one, we'd start to feel a little better about ourselves, and the rest would come because, like you said, after we scored that first one, we just kind of started rolling from there and took over the game.
This is a really young team, bottom third in the league in terms of its age. You were in San Diego a couple of years ago with some really highly touted prospects with the Anaheim Ducks. Trevor Zegras, Jamie Drysdale. You were there during the COVID year. When you look at this young crop of players, do you see similarities just with the skill and ability?
Sure. I think you look at a lot of the players we have, they play very similar to those guys. With Merkley and Bordelot and Eklund especially, these you can go on and on with how skilled they are. So it's kind of the newer wave with the way the game's going, how skilled players are, and it's exciting to play with them.
You've been in the Pacific Division. This is your third stop now. You spent some time San Antonio/Colorado and then in San Diego, as we alluded to. First time in San Jose. You played at the SAP Center. You've been in the NHL. You played there as an NHLer. You played in the American League. But to have this type of atmosphere, to have this intimate setting, what has it been like calling this home ice?
It's been fantastic, and especially a night like tonight when the building's full. It's an awesome energy. It's an awesome atmosphere, and just so you guys know how much the players really appreciate that and how much we feed off of it.
At this point in your career, you're in year number 10, and nothing can replace experience, and there's lots of young players that are looking up to veteran players to provide some sort of wisdom, if you will, about the professional level, what it takes to be a pro. This is the first year you've worn the C in your professional career. You wore it for 3 years in junior, but you had never worn it at the professional level. Have you changed your mentality, your approach at all, or are you just the same guy?
No, I mean, I've kind of been a leader, whether it be in sports or in with my family and stuff growing up. So I think it just kind of comes naturally to me, and I don't think I've changed at all. I try and continue to be who I am. I think that's the best way, just to be authentic. And there's a reason you're put in that position, and I think you have to stick to that and just be comfortable with yourself in that.
How would you describe your leadership style?
I like to joke around a lot. I mean, I'm fairly sarcastic with a lot of the guys, but I just try and. There's not much to be said. Everyone kind of knows, what the deal is that we're professional hockey players. But I think doing that on an everyday basis, showing up to the rink and doing that consistently, is the biggest change for guys coming in. Whether they're playing 30 games in college or in junior. It's a lot harder to do it against professionals every night. So coming every day, whether it's practice, morning skate, game day, and just having that professional business-like approach. And then you also have to mix in some fun with that because it is a long season and it can wear on guys, but you have to be professional every day, and that's kind of the message that I try to bring just with the way I approach every day.
Throughout your career, you've played with some really good captains in the NHL, Sidney Crosby, Landeskog you played with, Getzlaf. What's one singular thing that you noticed amongst those names that make them as great as they are, aside from their abilities? What makes them special?
I mean, they're all obviously superstar players and great captains, but I think the biggest thing with them is they're great people first and foremost. There's so much more to it than just the hockey aspect that they bring, and like you said, I'm very lucky to have spent time around those 3 guys. And they're just great people. They really care about the other guys on the team, trainers, staff, and everyone around. So it's not so much what they've done on the rink or in the locker room. It's how they treat people and how great of people they were to me.
I want to go back to when your career first started. You were an undrafted player. You scored 40 goals in the OHL a couple different times. In fact, I think you scored close to 43 times. But you didn't go draft. You were undrafted. First question: Why? Why do you think that was? Was it your stature? Do you feel like, as you look back?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly could have been. That was a bit of a different game back then than it was now. But I think everything happens for a reason, and that's just kind of my story, and it was a little bit of a longer road, but that just is part of who I am.
Your career started, correct me if I'm wrong, in Colorado under contract with the Avalanche. So as an undrafted player, how did that process work? Were you courted by several teams, and how did you land with Colorado?
Well, no, actually, I started on an AHL deal with Colorado at the time in Cleveland in Lake Erie, but that was the lockout year, so every team had a few extra players down in the American League, so I wasn't sure if I would be sticking in the American League or not. So I was kind of making my plans elsewhere in case it didn't work out and I had to go home and go back to normal life, I guess. But luckily I was able to stick with the Monsters at the time, and I had a great rookie season, and we just career went from there.
You don't have to worry about it, but you're now 10 years into your professional career. But have you ever thought about, like, what would I have been doing if this hadn't worked out for me?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I love real estate. It's an interest of mine, but I'm the only one in my family who hasn't joined the family business, so I think that would probably be the path for me.
We mentioned this is your first year in San Jose. You signed a 2-year contract this offseason to give yourself a little bit of stability. You're a young dad. You've got 2 kids. You're married. What did it mean for you at this point in your career to know that at the very least you're going to be here in San Jose for the next couple of years?
It was actually everything. It's exactly what we were looking for. We thought this was a great fit, and then the 2 years just kind of put it over the top for us. Like you said, with 2 young children and my daughter starting school in the next couple of years, it's exciting. She's having a blast, and she's acclimatized really well to moving out here. It was obviously difficult for her at first, but she's having a great time at school, and we're happy to be here for 2 years.
Do you see your kids eventually playing hockey? Like, what's the path? Are you going to be a hockey dad?
That's strictly up to them. We'll see. My 3-year-old daughter doesn't have much interest in going on the ice yet, but she had a great time with the teddy bear toss tonight, so maybe that's a start.
She's probably got one to take home, too. That's not a bad thing. Just talking about this team, we're now a couple of months into the year. The halfway point unofficially is Christmas in the American Hockey League and really in the NHL as well. This is a team that's just oozing with talent. This is my 7th year, and we had a team that made it to the Western Conference Finals, and I think this team may be more talented. What is it going to take for you guys to really come together from a consistency standpoint? Because it's a win here, a loss here, a win here, and that's going to happen with the young teams. But what do you feel like is going to be that turning point that's going to start stringing together wins?
I think just the maturity of a lot of players on our team and as a team together. I think that you can see the skill level we have, and we've put it together in pieces here and there, but that's kind of like I talked about, the professionalism of being able to do that every night, week in and week out. So I think we're going to learn that as a group. We're going to learn that as individuals. And once that happens, it's going to be something special because, like you said, this team is really talented, and we're going to need everybody because this division is, in history, always super tight down the stretch. So I think once we kind of find that and have that confidence that we're a good team and we can play with anybody, it's going to be something fun to watch.
You didn't really get your first real crack in the NHL till about your 3rd season. And for a lot of these young players, there's always that mental, I think, block where I want to be in the NHL, I want to be there, but I want to also produce and I want to grow in this league. So from your experience, what would you say to a young player while they're in the AHL? The long-term goal is the NHL, but what would be the message to them?
Yeah, it's hard to see at the time, but I think the biggest thing is to stay present. I think the big picture of obviously wanting to be in the NHL can sometimes overshadow where you are, but I think you have to be where your feet are and be present in the American League, and that's the only way to advance out of the American League. It's like I said, it's easy to look forward at what if and next year and the year after that, but I think you have to really focus on what's going on tomorrow in order to get there.
We dealt with the COVID season, which included a taxi squad, and the transactions seemed more common than ever before. I mean, there was guys going up and down. Some guys wouldn't play for a month. That's kind of gone away. And if you look before this past weekend, Nick Cicek was the only player that started with the Barracuda and then got NHL games. Has that been nice from just, I would say, a camaraderie standpoint for the group? The same guys in the room and same guys going to battle every night?
Sure, it's always easier when you're having the same line mates or same power play units and penalty kill partners, but we've been fortunate that we've only lost a couple guys for a short amount of time. But in the American League, it's always going to happen, and it might happen in January or February for us where we lose 5 or 6 guys to the Sharks. So every team goes through it, and that's just the reality of the AHL. But it has been a great thing for us to have the same group together on the road and at home and to really get to know one another.
I think we'll open it up to fans here in just a moment, but I got 2 more for you. Young kid, Andrew Agozzino, when you were just putting on the skates for the first time, you're growing up in Ontario. Who was the guy that you idolized as a young kid? Who do you want to be growing up? It
was the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Matt Sundin. He was the player that my brother and I would pretend when we were playing street hockey. We would pretend to be him. So he was probably and that's the reason I wore number 13 growing up as well. So that was the guy we looked up to.
So I think it would be fair to say you're probably a Maple Leafs fan as a kid.
I was. Can't stand them now, but I certainly was.
My last question is, and before we allow some of the fans to ask a few questions, is everybody has a story, everybody has a beginning. Your hockey life and falling in love with the sport, when did it begin for you? When are your earliest memories of it?
As far as I can remember, I think the earliest memory I have was it was a school trip for my older brother and sister at the hockey rink, and my mom brought me anyways, and I was able to go out and just kind of run with my running shoes on the ice. And, from there, my brother was playing hockey, so we would play in the basement at our house for hours all the way from when we got home from school till we went to bed. So it just kind of is a natural thing almost in Canada, especially in a place like Toronto. So it was really easy for me to fall in love with it.
Probably hard to imagine the largest ice facility in North America is now in San Jose, being a Canadian kid. But let's open it up to some of our fan questions here. We'll get to a few of our fans. If you guys raise your hands, I can come to you and we'll ask Andrew a few questions before we let him go. So we'll start right in front.
What's your favorite moment playing hockey professionally?
That would be my first NHL goal. Like Nick said, it took me a little longer than most players to make the NHL, and then there was about a 4.5-year gap that it took for me to get back to the NHL. So I think I was 28 years old at the time, so it was a long time coming for my first NHL goal, but that would definitely be the best moment of my career for sure.
Who was the goalie and where was it?
It was in Colorado against Malcolm Subban, who's actually a good friend of mine, so I'm sure to remind him.
You knew his weakness.
In the summer, I'm sure to remind him quite often.
What's your favorite team you've gone up against?
Favorite team I've gone up against? I would have to say probably my first time playing in the NHL in Toronto, and that was just because I've watched so many games there growing up, and I was a Leaf fan as a kid, and my family was able to be there. All my cousins, brothers, sisters, and everyone was able to be there. So that was probably the coolest experience that I enjoyed playing.
Who's your rival?
Rival? Oh, a lot of rivals growing up. I think now, though, we're going to play Bakersfield quite a bit, so we'll probably have a good rivalry with them. I think anyone in the Pacific Division is probably a good rival for us now.
I think Tucson, right?
And Tucson, too, absolutely.
What's one tip you can teach anyone to be more professional in whatever their aspiration is?
That's a great question. I think, I mentioned it earlier, it's the way you treat people. I think that goes a long way. I think it starts with that and how you treat others, and that could be, whether that is a superior of yours or someone who, maybe what you may work with or a partner. But I think starting with that and how you treat people is the first step into being a great professional in whatever field you're in.
What is something that you say to your team before the game?
Not a whole lot. Our coaching staff does a great job preparing us for all the structural and tactical stuff on the ice. Like I said, I try to keep it loose and joke around a little bit before the game, but there is a fine line that we have to make sure that we're ready to play. So there's nothing specific that I would say, but just to make sure everyone's loose and comfortable and confident going into the game, as opposed to, guys might be a little uptight or a little nervous. I think the more relaxed we are, the better we play.
Do you have any fun superstitions you like to do before games or practices?
I probably do that I'm not even aware of, that have probably just come naturally to me over the years. There's nothing I can really think of But like I said, I'm sure there's something. If you followed me around, you'd find something weird that I do.
What's your favorite Christmas movie?
Favorite Chris? That's easy for me. That's The Grinch with Jim Carrey. That's an easy one for me.
Well, thank you everybody for coming by, and thank you to Andrew.
Thank you guys. Thank you.